schools, construction management, and a very special guest. Let's get into it. Welcome to What the RFI. I'm Matt Brennan, and this is the podcast all about CA. Today, we're literally live on location in a very beautiful home, and I'm with a very special friend, Frank Geier. Frank, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thanks for having me on, Matt. I'm a huge fan of your show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's my story? Well, I've been in construction pretty much my whole life because my father was a master carpenter and a general superintendent. That basically had me pulling nails and stacking boards at a very early age. I've been in paid positions for the last 50 years. It's hard to believe, but it's been 50 years working weekends and summers during high school and university with a major road building contractor who gave me my first career start when I graduated from UBC in 1984 as an assistant project manager for, at the time, one of the largest projects in BC, which was the CP Rail double tracking through Rogers Pass. So I did that for a few years, but then the company, due to losing more and more work to non-union companies, decided to wind down operations and let a lot of the younger guys go. But I was very lucky to bounce back, and I was hired by Transport Canada as the youngest project manager in the Pacific region with their air transportation group. And they started out giving me typical road waters or civil engineering jobs, because that's what I am, a civil engineer.
Yeah.
And eventually they moved me on to facility development, and starting with the Terrace Airport Fire Hall and Maintenance Facility, which was awesome. It was my favorite project until later in my career.
Before we go, why civil engineer? What that intrigued you from that?
Well, I think it was when I was working weekends and summers, and while house building was important, I didn't see myself as an architectural type, because I overanalyze everything. And so as an engineer, I like to problem solve stuff. So as a civil engineer, it was the fastest way for me to become a construction superintendent in heavy road construction. And that's why I chose that path, with construction management sprinkled in. And I was very fortunate that my last year at UBC as a student, they offered construction management as a minor.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just carried on, like, again, that's with the intention. You had no idea that that's where you're going to go to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just kind of blossomed. That's cool.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, then, so like I said, I was with Transport Canada for 4 years, and then I managed to get a job right here in Surrey where I live. And I worked as a lifeguard. I worked as a rink rat at Cloverdale Arena. And I figured, hey, let's work for the city. And I was their first project manager hired in their facilities group. And over 7 years, I did all sorts of projects, fire halls, but the crowning achievement for me was the South Surrey Ice Arena, which was one of the first projects I did for the city. And it was really cool because it was the largest free-spanning Paralam structure in the world at that time.
Okay.
And that was in about 94. And but it was great. It was a great run. But I found that I needed more of a challenge. And so I went into high tech for a couple of years. I decided to steer away from the public sector and got a job as a director of facilities for a high tech firm out of Burnaby.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I did that for a little while, but I realized it wasn't for me. So I took a step back and became an associate director back at UBC in plant operations. And I got to start the new construction office, Project Services, it was called. I think it's still called that. But I got to start that, and I got to build from the ground up, hiring project managers, taking over the design office, because they had architects and in-house technicians, but they were a little out of sync. And so I took them over, and we became a design build office. And our job was to make money by doing projects for departments, and then the revenue we would get would augment maintenance. Um, and just when we broke even,
Hmm.
I decided to make another career move. It was killing me
Right.
driving to UBC every day from Cloverdale,
Right. The
and
traffic. And that was probably when traffic was late. Now,
that's what traffic. Yeah,
today would be a different story
yeah,
entirely. You might as well
yeah.
just fly there.
Yeah, exactly. But I swore I would never go through the Massey Tunnel ever again after
Yeah.
that. But little did I know later in my career I would. But no, I had a great opportunity offered to me. I wanted to stay in education,
Yeah.
but UBC was a very complex, it was a large
Yeah.
operation, and I felt that I couldn't make enough of a impact when it came to decision making with regards to where the money was going towards
Yeah.
projects or going to maintenance. So when I had the opportunity to apply for the job in Delta School District as their director of facilities, I jumped at it and basically put everything I had into it.
Yeah.
And luckily, I got the job. And I said I'd probably do this for 5 years. Well, it turned into 15 years.
Right. Yeah. So this was like 17 years ago then, I guess.
No, it was about 20.
20.
It was 22 years
That's
ago
right.
now.
Yeah, because I were Richmond. We're to get into that part of the story here. Okay. Yeah. So 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was 20. Yeah, it was 22 years ago. It was 2002. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but no, and while I was director, the school district didn't have the funds to pay for project management. So I had to double as not just being the director of the operations. That was like maintenance, cleaning, grounds, basically the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And IT. I also was the major capital project manager.
Right. And going back to the facility side, like you weren't doing the work, you were just instructing, you were managing
Correct.
a team under you and going through that
motion.
I
had two managers, and which grew over time that we were able to add a few more. But yeah, that's basically what it was. I was responsible for making sure the buildings were clean, safe, operational. And, but I also was tasked with project management. And right at the beginning of my tenure, the Seismic Mitigation program came into being in the province. And Delta, being as close to the water as it is, was very vulnerable. It had a number of schools that were vulnerable, not just for the structure, but for the substructure. And one of the things I really prided myself on when I was in Delta was we were the first school district to actually finish our program. So we had 10 schools on the seismic mitigation program list, and we were the first school district to get them all done. And that to me really stood out. And the Ministry of Education noticed it and were pursuing me to start a project office in even a more vulnerable region in Greater Vancouver, and that's Richmond.
Yeah. Before that, how did you get? What do you think that you did so unique to basically blast through that? Because you became yes, it was one of the main cities that was requiring these major seismic upgrades during that process. But you accelerated, you did it in the right fashion. Why do you think that you, your team, and everyone involved, why did you guys get through it so quick, given the red tape?
Dogged determination, Matt.
Yes.
Dogged determination.
It pays off.
I was on the blower with ministry officials constantly. It's not that I wanted to be the first in the province to get everything done. I just wanted to get it done. And that's
get it done.
And that's kind of my I'm kind of like Larry the Cable Guy, get her done.
Yeah, that's right. I was just thinking
that's kind of my credo is once I'm posed with a problem, I want to solve it. And in Delta, if I hadn't pushed as hard as I did, I don't think we would have gotten the projects approved that we did. But even the last project, the Gibson Elementary project, which I started but I didn't finish, it was 2 years off on the ministry timeline. But I said, look, we've saved so much money on our other projects. Let's take advantage of it now. And actually, the Minister of Education at the time, Rob Fleming,
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? Let's push this one forward. Let's see if we can finish Delta off. So it was, like I say, it was dogged determination, and then
Mm-hmm.
having a really like a top-notch team that when we went out for proposals, everybody knew what we wanted. Everybody sharpened their pencils, and we had like phenomenal project teams throughout that span. And
Mm-hmm.
there's without that, we never would have finished those projects as quickly as we did. We were under budget on every one of them, which was we never had to go into the reserves,
Yeah.
which was very unique. But definitely other school districts paid notice to that and just said, what's the secret to your success? And I said, having a really good team
Yeah.
and using construction management as agent as our method of construction delivery.
And we're going to totally get into that. And
Yeah.
Yeah. You're of all the people for that. And the thing on the channel is like, I've talked about lots of stip sum and all that. And even kind of toyed with the IPD, but construction management, other than a couple like lines here and there, haven't focused a whole episode. And that's really what this is. And of all the people to bring into it, you are the man for this. So
Well, thanks,
clearly
Matt.
the history that we
Yeah.
just went through shows that extremely well.
Yeah.
And the community owes you, and the government,
Yeah.
everyone owes you to that.
Well,
you got it done.
Yeah. And even when I was still in Delta, and when the province, like for 3 years, they were after me to make that move to Richmond, because Richmond had 35 schools that needed seismic upgrades, but they were hung up on wanting the school district and its facilities team wanted to replace the buildings instead of fix them.
Yeah.
And my philosophy has always been, if a building's got good bones, save it.
Mm-hmm.
It may look like garbage now, but by the time we're finished, as long as the bones are good, we can polish it up and make it look new again. And we were able to do that in Delta with great success. So when I made the move to Richmond in 2018, it was a daunting task. 35 schools over a 15-year time span was our goal to complete. And, I can say with 100%, confidence that, we were able to complete 11 in the first 5 years. So we were right on track. We got there's 3 projects that I started before I retired that are currently in underway. And, and again, all those projects, the one thing we can hang our hats on is that we delivered them on time. We delivered them under budget. The ministry was approving them at a pretty fast rate. And then when COVID came along, everything slowed right down. We were getting 3 or 4 projects approved a year, and then it turned into 1 or 2. And I got a little bit frustrated by that because, how are we going to get 35 in 15 years if we're kind of stuck now at 13 or 14? So I decided in 2023 that, you know what, it's time to become a pensioner. And I made the decision to retire and start my business, my new business as a facilities consultant to school districts. And that's where we are right now. So that's my career in a snapshot.
That was very impressive.
Long snapshot.
Hey, that's okay. But yeah, and just before we jumped on here, like you're telling me that, when you did it, you're like, oh, it's going to be all right. It'll make a few dollars here and there. But in the end, like you said, your legacy, everyone's been taking notice of that. And now your phone is ringing, and thankfully we put it on Do Not Disturb. Otherwise, we wouldn't get through the show.
Yeah, well, I've got my phone on Do Not Disturb right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that is huge. And I think what's, and just through your passion, your excitement and everything, and your friendliness, open to teach and being open to ideas, that's how we met. Yep. And I still remember the first day because I freshly started at the days when it was Craven Houston Powers Architects. And Glenn froze, we got a new job, and Elvin Bartaro, one of the partners of the firm, said, hey, we're going to put you on this new seismic upgrade. It's in Delta. We're out in Chilliwack. It was a good drive. We got there and walking to that room, we were in the library of the massive seismic upgrade. Already started. Design was already done, but now it's in kind of the CA process. It's being built. And I walk in the room, and Glenn's like, just want to introduce you to this is Matt. He's kind of new. And I'm like, I'm not new in a sense, but yes. And then immediately I'm just like, you feel like you're amongst friends. Cause I was like, I know you, I know you, I know you. And that's where you and I met,
Yep.
one-on-one.
Yep.
And what an absolute pleasure it was doing all those years together. And again, you allowing the creativity side, which we're definitely going to get and talk
Yep.
to about how that was even possible with, construction management.
Yep.
And like I said, and look, here we are. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
really cool. Like your legacy is amazing. So hands down.
Well, thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
To me, it's not about legacy. It's about the kids. And that's, and I know I guess the way I've always looked at my business style is it's about collaboration. It's about everybody having a say. Eventually someone has to make the decision, and ultimately it boils down to the project manager. But I am very inclusive, and every project I want to have some fun. And that's why we can take projects totally seriously, and we can even be antagonistic. I prefer the approach of, if we have a team meeting, have a few laughs in there. Make sure make sure you surround yourself with people who are prepared to get along, who all have the same ultimate goal. It's not about the profit. It's about the finished product. Yeah. And I have been really blessed. I got to say, throughout my career, I've been very, very fortunate to be amongst some of the best architects, engineers, technologists, surveyors, but
the right team. Yeah. The A team throughout.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and that's what's made this such a fulfilling career for me.
Yeah.
And,
very cool.
Yeah.
So of course, being, what the RFI, the podcast and everything, construction management, what is a simple way to put it out there for someone that does no idea, or they think they know what they're doing with CM? Well, what is CM? What is construction management in a nutshell?
So that's a really good question, Matt. So my definition. So I'll just start off by saying I've been using construction management as my primary means, and I'm going to qualify this. It's construction management as agent. I don't really believe in construction management at risk, because then you take a very collegial relationship during the design phase, and then it could turn into a confrontational relationship during construction. Because what you're doing, you're telling the construction manager, you've been part of the team, you've been part of the collaboration, you've been feeding information in about buildability. And then when it comes time for the rubber to hit the road, well, now you're just a general contractor and you have a stip sum. So I've never used it, and I'm not a fan of it, because what I see construction management as an agent, and like I said, I've been using it since 1996. And I still remember the project I was working on, replacing the ice rink slab at Cloverdale Arena.
Okay.
And we had Stanley Associates, it's now Stantec. They were the engineers, and we had Dominion Construction as the general contractor. And we found that we had so much permafrost under that slab. I still remember Cameron Kemp. He was with Dominion. He came to me and said, we should think about converting this project into a construction management project from a step sum. And I said,
right.
Why?
When did you guys analyze that? Was that kind of early on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was, we already awarded the contract. They were the successful bidder. And what we did, we closed the arena down, and we drilled a core hole in the slab to see how deep the permafrost was.
Okay. And
we were expecting, maybe a meter tops.
Yeah.
And it was 3.5 meters.
Holy smokes.
Thick. And right away they said, this could be a great job to do with construction management. And I said, why? Well, because with a stip sum, the contractor takes on all the risk, but they also take the reward. So in other words, if they give a fixed price and they do it and they can actually provide the services for less, they keep the difference in addition to their overhead and profit. If you go construction management, you share the risk, but you share the reward. Yeah. So because you're hiring the construction manager on a fixed fee contract, to be your agent in the field, to do your superintendent role, your contract administration from a construction standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
not from a design standpoint. But the nice thing is that if you underestimate, you get to keep the difference as an owner. And I did a lot, and I knew about this because I took it at UBC.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
thought, so I bought into it right away. I remember my boss wasn't too thrilled about it, but he trusted me, and we pulled that project off remarkably under budget
Right.
because we got to be very flexible with how we dealt with change orders and whatnot. So to me, my definition of construction management is agent. It's like having your own in-house construction department, your own superintendent, and they're not in it for themselves to make a huge profit. They're in it to make the project a success. And the construction manager gets their fee for
Mm-hmm.
construction management. My contracts, we also include the superintendent because that could get really out of control if you don't button it up early. But
Mm-hmm.
we pay for that up front. We know what that's going to cost. All we don't know is what the trade contractors are going to cost.
Right.
But to me, the construction manager is the maestro in the field, the superintendent. He's the guy who, or could be a she.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are coordinating everything. They know they're going to get paid. They know their profit is covered.
Yeah.
But
They're not
like
gonna get burned or anything. Yeah,
exactly
like that. Like going back to the slab was a good idea because like
Yeah.
if that was stip sum and like you were thinking, oh wait, it's only a meter, 3 feet, where it was. Well, as soon as you start digging into it, extras,
Oh, yeah.
extras, and
Yep.
it's just at that point you would issue a change directive, and
Oh.
you don't know what that bill is until it would
Exactly.
be finally done.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the CM approach
Ye-
allowed
it-
you to kind of have this as a complete open CD,
Yeah.
but you're not
Right.
not against each other. You're
Right.
working together as a team.
Exactly. And that's the difference. And I've been burned a number of times on stip sum contracts where I remember one project in Surrey where we, we awarded the contract, and at the kickoff meeting, our first site meeting, the first thing the contractor did was serve me with a change order for $25,000 because he didn't realize that we couldn't get 3-phase power to the job site for his trailer.
Oh, just for the trailer, not for the
just
project.
for the trailer.
Just
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
trailer.
Yeah. So he served me with an extra, and I, what's this about? He said, well, it wasn't in, even though we made it clear in the tender that they're supposed to figure out their site, their temporary power and whatnot.
Yeah.
They were supposed to figure it out, but he served me with a change order with an extra, and that project just spiraled.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice on that one. That one had to be stip sum because that's what the city manager wanted. And that
Okay.
was the only job I did stip sum since it was about a year later. It was like 97, I guess. But I after that I said never again. That's it. I'm done
Right.
with this. I'm done with the confrontation. So like I say, what a CM does, they take on they basically do the same coordination as what a general contractor does. And the function is very similar, except there's a prearranged fee.
Okay.
So they know what they're going to make. The CM is part of the team, and I make them part of the team early on. Like when we have a project approved, I put the RFP out for both the prime consultant and the CM at the same time. Because as project manager, I want all 3 players at the table from cradle to grave of the project.
Right.
So everybody buys in. So it's a form of, it's kind of a loose form of IPD that we do, but what it does, it just means that everyone's pulling on the same rope right from the start. And the contract,
Right.
The construction manager is reviewing for buildability. They're advising on schedule. You may have an architect who says that, we should go with this type of a soffit system. And you'll have the CM going, that's going to take 6 months to get, and it's going to cost a fortune. Whereas if you go this way, so it's a very organic process during design phase, but the CM has a say as opposed to in a stip sum
It's
where the
architect
contractor
leading.
gets what they get, and then they're going to exploit it. And the reason one of the other reasons why I'm um, as knowledgeable as to how STIP some contractors think is because when I was in contracting, when I did that job with CP Rail, one of my jobs as assistant engineer was to find extras.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end of the job, it was a 17 back then, 17 million. Now it'd be like 117 million, but it was 17 million. And I was able to get $5 million in extras at the end of the job, of which if I would have been working with my conscience more, was maybe $1 million, but we made 4 million
right
on extras. And I looked at that and I just couldn't see myself carrying on like that. Ethically, it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So knowing that that's the way a general contractor was when I was working there, I obviously had this little chip on my shoulder when it came to, GCs moving forward. And after getting burned a couple times on projects in Surrey,
as an owner, of course,
as the owner's rep, yeah. So then I became a lot smarter about it, a lot more astute, and that's why CM as agent has become such an important tool in my toolbox.
And it's been working, and of course, and again, like from your history and everything, it's been working really well. So like, I think we've kind of touched on a lot of the benefits of it, but is there any cons? Any negatives from a CM side?
Well, the way I describe it to people is you've got to have the stomach to assume some of the financial and schedule risk when you go with CM as agent, because if you don't have the stomach for it, or you don't have the hands-on know-how, if you don't get the right construction manager in place, or if you're not on top of budget and change orders, they're unchecked, things could spiral very, very quickly. You don't have that financial security that you have in a STIP sum by saying, well, the STIP sum, that's the maximum. You're kind of going into this, you've got a budget in mind, because the budget's been established before you tender out to all the different trade contractors. But there's nothing contractually that says you have to stay within that. So there is a risk. If you're, and I just remember again, when I hark back to that job in Cloverdale Arena, I remember at the time that one of the reasons why Dominion was so keen on switching that way is because I was so hands-on, that I was on top of everything, and I was out in the job site all the time, and I was constantly second guessing the engineers of the project and this, and they said, this might be best for someone like you, because you are, I'm not saying I'm a control freak, but I really like to know where every part of the job is at, because I've been there. I worked as a laborer. I dug those holes. I pulled those nails. I built those forms. But if you're not that knowledgeable in that area, it could, and if you don't have the right CM, it could go really bad. So, what I say is that the other con is time means money. And what I mean by that is that if you're as a project manager not knowledgeable enough, that when the superintendent throws something at you, and throws something at the contract administrator that needs an immediate decision, if you can't make decisions quickly, that will lead to schedule delays and costs, and your remedies are not really that strong in the contract. So, in order to get the most out of using CM or IPD for that matter, you got to be able to process information very quickly, understand the risk, understand the reward, and then make the decision, and trust your construction manager, and trust your CA, because to me, the CA is protecting the design integrity. The construction manager is protecting the construction integrity, construction process integrity. And as long as everybody's on the same page, it's great. If you've got people that are not on the same page, it can go horribly bad.
And I was kind of bringing up a good point of like, do you get a better product in it? Like we know Stip Sum, we do the
Yep.
drawings, we have this beautiful school, and now we got competitive bids coming at every angle about it, trying to make that work. And if you've done your QS and you've done your
Yep.
quantity survey, at the end of the day, it should be built on budget. You get these competitive bids, you get some tight bids, the drawings and specs were great,
Yep.
awesome. And then boom, that's what you get. There's no
Yep.
surprises. With CM, can we still get that at the end of the day? Can we
I-
get a nice product?
I believe so, because I think, Matt, one of the things that when I used to do STIP sum contracts, we used to use a bid depository system. So we used to have, on larger projects, we would have like the trade contractors submit their bids to the BC Construction Association plan room, and they would take the bid depository, and then all the contractors, all the generals would be able to pull their price together from those groups.
Yeah.
The nice thing about CM, I think you get a better product because, first off, you can pre-qualify and this is something we always do. On my CM projects, I build that into the construction manager's agreement that they need to pre-qualify their trades. Obviously, the trades that are most familiar with construction management as agent, they tend to bid the jobs a lot more, and they bid a lot tighter, and we end up seeing a lot of repeat trades. And to me, if you don't have a good team of trade contractors, all it takes is one that can just ruin a whole project. So to me, if you're pre-qualifying, you're, instead of taking the bids and then you got to award to the low bidder, if you pre-qualify, at least you have to award to the low bidder, and then you check your references. This way you're doing it in reverse. So you're going to get a quality company who's going to give you a price, who's going to give you the price. And then and then because the construction manager hopefully has worked with those trades before, I think you get much more harmony on the project, a lot more creativity. And the result is that you can actually, where you can find efficiencies in construction, that can be converted into other improvements elsewhere. Like if you have every project we do, we have a wish list.
Yeah. And I was going to say, a wish list. Like, again, like, do you get a better product in? And then if because we're kind of designing as we go to some extent. And then, can we have wish list items? Can we have nice things on the jobs?
Well, and Matt, that's something that that's one of the things I pride myself on, is that every project we've done with construction management as an agent, we've been able to. But what I like to do is that we put our plans together, we put our budgets together, we get the budget approved from senior government, and then from there, what I've always done is challenge the team, not just the CM, but the team, the CA, the CM, all the trade contractors and sub-consultants, and I challenge them to say, okay, like if we're doing a seismic upgrade, I want us to find the most operationally, financially efficient way of doing the work that you don't see. So the work that's buried in the walls or the ceilings or the floors. Find a way to make that, to do a better job of how to get to that result, so we can free up cash. So we can do things that you normally couldn't afford, things like, paint job, new floors. We're talking about Delta Secondary, the project. One of the things I remember when I came to the school district, and I looked, and there was one intersection of the school. There were like two crossing hallways, and I counted 5 different types of flooring. Ranging from 1960s linoleum up to the cheapest vinyl tile you've ever seen. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure on a job like that, and that was a complex project, is that we find a way that the work we have to do behind the finishes is done so efficient that we can free up capital so we can put new floors in. I wanted every hallway to look exactly the same. I don't care what vintage. And there were 11 different additions done to that school that we had to find a way to tie it together to make it look somewhat the same. And so,
In a uniform
so
way, yeah.
yeah, so things like paint jobs, flooring, addition of security shutters, if you can do stuff like that, anything. And I guess the reason why I'm so passionate about that part is because as a facility manager over the years, I have to worry about the maintenance as well. So when I turn the building over to the maintenance department, I
Yeah.
want it to be more maintenance free than it was when we took it over. So if they get a new roof, if we can afford to give them a new roof, or if the design, if we have a decision that whether we're going to do the roof diaphragm from the inside or the outside, I'll always take the outside so we can get a new roof out of the deal.
Right.
Right.
And that's the game that you're playing through this process. And that's where the
Exactly.
benefits
Yeah.
are, that you're
But
pulling out money in certain areas.
as long as you stay within the project budget,
Right.
because obviously, if I don't want to gouge the taxpayer because I'm a taxpayer. So obviously, everything I want to do has to be within budget. So yeah, so I find again with CM that because everything is. It's not as cut and dry as a step sum when it comes to change orders and that, because again, if you can find operational efficiencies in your construction, the savings come back to the owner
Yes.
to redeploy.
Right.
It doesn't go into the pocket of the general contractor. There's nothing wrong with general contracting or step sum. To me, I find that this system works better for me. Does it involve more work as a PM? Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But I
to
think
me, it's
that's where you're
worth it.
seeing the benefits from this, right? Like
Exactly.
you have to be in the right mindset. If someone had no experience in construction and the way it worked or how that process worked, you could go for a run of your money, and then in the end you don't. But again, the projects that I've personally been involved with you on it,
Yeah.
like I said, like Delta Secondary, we flew in a whole crazy canopy into a courtyard and just like we had fun. We created our architectural unique pieces and redoing the whole community center or community theater.
The theater, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like that was, again, it's all kind of whatever we take away, we got to put back the same or better.
And the nice thing about that project too is that partway through construction, I was able to get building envelope funding from the province as well for the theater because it had failed. And we were able to pivot very quickly by saying instead of doing the seismic upgrading within the inside of the building, we were able to do it on the outside of the building, which saved money, but it also gave the building a brand new exterior. But we were able to pivot because when you're working with a construction management as agent, they can pivot. Yeah, okay. Is the project going to take longer? Yes. Do you negotiate an add-on to the fee? Well, of course. I don't want a construction manager to lose money on these jobs, but at the same time, because we got that flexibility and the fact that we were able to, like I said, pivot with our design, and we went on the outside of the building and gave the whole building a brand new exterior, one that we were up for an award for.
Right.
And it's on my website. It's on the cover of my
Nice.
it's on the homepage of my website. That's the sort of thing that's why I got into construction in the first place.
Nice.
To make basically to make a building better than it was when we took it over, or whether it's a building, if it's a parking lot, if it's a sewer system, all I want to do is extend the life of the buildings. Right now, we got most of the schools in BC, they're well over 50 years old.
And there was probably built on a 75, 100-year lifespan.
Exactly. So if I can extend that life by another 30, 40 years, my job is done. And one of the things I've always, and going back to this wish list, one of the things that's really important to me is that it's one thing to do a seismic upgrade or do any sort of a renovation, but you don't really touch the classroom. Whereas I look at it from the other standpoint and say, I want classrooms I want to reduce the number of distractions in a classroom.
Right. That's a very key point. There's a benefit by itself.
Yeah. And if that means, and I mean, one of the things that I did in Richmond before I left, one of the things that was really important is I was able to convince our board to finance the retrofit of mechanical ventilation into a number of schools that were built without. They only had boiler heat. And during COVID, we had to put in air purifiers.
Yes,
In
yeah.
the dead of winter, they had to open up the windows to let air in. And basically the air that was coming from the radiators was going straight out the window.
Yeah, and just burning. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did is I was able, and I knew that, the province was strapped when it came to funding that. So I had our board finance it. And why did I do it? I wasn't doing it to pad my resume or, to build a legacy. I did it because to me, it's a distraction when it's the dead of winter and you got windows open for natural ventilation and you're freezing the kids out and you're basically pouring money out the window with your heating. So if we can put a unit ventilator in that runs quietly, so you oversize it so it runs at a slower speed, so it's not as noisy as a classic unit, and you get your ventilation. Just like I always say, if before you do an inside job, and going back to my days at UBC, I remember we were going to redo the library, give the main library, the grand hall, a new facelift.
Yep.
But the roof was leaking. The original slate roof was leaking, and one of the things I argued for is to say, before we put a penny into this, look at this, before you paint that beam, let's fix the roof first.
Got priorities here.
And we were able to get the donor to kick in some more money so we could actually fix the roof properly before doing the work inside.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's a distraction. If you've got, kids that are trying to pay attention and there's raindrops hitting them on the head, so that's why I say it's all about reducing distractions. And if we can do that, if we can take a capital project and leverage our expertise in this and have the team pull together and get these little things done, the ultimate winner is the education system, which is really what it's all about.
And I think, it takes a really unique, like we've talked about the CM, the GC that's acting as that, and we've talked about your perspective. And as far as the architect goes, you definitely need an architect that understands this game. They have to understand this. And I guess kind of like the big thing is the process with this. If we decide, hey, this makes sense because we've got unknowns and everything.
Yep.
When would you bring the CM? You kind of touched on it earlier, but we've got the capital planning. It's been approved by the ministry. At this point, have you hired your CM or have you hired your architect or a bit of both?
Okay, that's a really good question, Matt. So, what I typically do is when a project is approved, like I said, I put out the simultaneous RFPs. First off, I make sure what's really important when you're working with public schools is that you have to have a business case that the Ministry of Education buys into. And part of that business case that you make has to describe what your construction procurement process is going to be. And some school districts choose to go, like I said, they'll go step some. Some of them will go design build.
Yeah.
And what my challenge has always been is to how do I justify construction management as agent on a project. So I have to make sure that I've got the Ministry of Education on board so that when we have a project agreement, which is the funding mechanism for a project, it has to say in there that this is how we're going to procure the project. So if we have that, and I've never had the Ministry of Education say no, and because we've made a really strong case. I've written a bit of a paper on how do you know when CM is right for you, right? So I've done that. But no. So what I do is I'll put out simultaneous RFPs for the prime consultant and the construction manager as agent to ensure that the project team is in place right from the get-go, right at the start. And
so schematic design, we're drawing, we're meeting. And
then during the design phase, I make sure the construction manager takes part in every team meeting that we have. So the architect or the CA runs the meetings during design. They're the prime on during the design phase. I'm there as the project manager, but I also make sure the construction manager is there, the project manager for the construction management firm, because I want them to offer guidance on buildability. They're the ones that are going to develop the construction schedule. They're the ones that I expect to do the cost estimates, the intermediate ones. The QS has done his job by
high level. This high level would be at the
like
beginning.
a Class D estimate. So the QS did his job by getting us the estimate that got the project approved. Now I want the CM to do the class C, B, and A estimates, even though the Ministry of Education requires a QS to confirm the post-tender numbers.
Yeah.
But during the course of construction, I want to make sure that we're on budget, that we're not going to be surprised in the end. If it looks like we are going over, that it's caught early enough that we can massage the design and have the CM advise, what we need to do to bring it under budget again. But at the same time, they're looking ahead. Instead of having a building permit and then you award a contract and then they have to figure out how are they going to mobilize? What do they need for temporary facilities? That's done well in advance.
That's right.
And the other thing that's really important is that I want the construction manager to start liaising with the own forces from the school district, like the technology team, security, the custodians, to make sure that they're part of the process. And then the final thing that I find that really is beneficial by getting the CM in early is that if we have to do any invasive or non-invasive investigations, like if we have to, like what I explained, what we did at Cloverdale Arena, where we had to drill a hole and find out how much permafrost we had. Well, if we need to find out ahead of time that maybe the hazmat report is off, or is this wall? It says it's a 5/8 type X wall, but is it?
Yeah.
Peel back and have a look and see what the board says for fire rating.
That's right, because that can totally change the design process, and it does take that synergy between the groups, and it is neat. Like from the architectural point, we ran the meetings originally. Like we did the meeting minutes, meeting notes. We did all that. Like I said, the CM was basically in the room offering their 2 cents, going, "You're nuts because that's it." Or like you said, the scheduling is a big one, right? Especially when we're talking schools, because now like big disruptive, areas like, hey, we've got summer coming up. Let's get in there and blast through it. So the architect's going to have to push a little harder to get those drawings identified.
Exactly. And one of the things I forgot to mention is phasing, because quite often, again, if you're doing a job step sum, the architect is the one who'll put together a phasing plan, but the contractor, when they get the job, they may go, well, that's not going to work for this reason or the other. This way, the phasing, it's collaborative as to how we're going to phase this project, because you got the CM involved, you got the PM involved, you got the prime consultant, you've got the principal, you may have other school district senior managers involved. But what gets shown on the drawings is the net result of all the collaboration. So we have a phasing plan that really works. So that, during the design phase, these are huge. But once we get into construction,
that's a good segue. So now we're in construction. We've gone in. We're green light. BPs have been approved. Building permit.
But that's where things flip a little bit. So the team meetings are now chaired by the construction manager. And but the CA has a super important role in this, because even though they don't have this, they're not the payment certifier that you would have on a
like a step sum, fixed bid.
What it is they advise, they consult, they review. They still have to process submittals, but the CM gets it, and they'll be the ones that will receive the RFIs. They'll compile and issue the RFI that goes to the CA, and but the CA has a little bit. I find that the role it's a little bit different. The CA can become a little more creative, because we're not everything's not as cut and dry when it comes to reviewing and approving or denying or declining change order amounts, and that it's more of a consultative, you're doing more consulting back to I call them the triad. It's the CM, the CA, and the PM. We collectively have to decide. So the CM takes on the role of payment certifier, because all the trade contractors, and that's assigned by the owner because all the trade contractors aren't under contract to the construction manager. They're under contract to the owner.
Right.
Right.
Okay. From the big
But
contractual point of view.
right.
Okay.
But what we've done, because when I started doing this, what used to drive our finance departments crazy is that we would have like 20 contracts. That meant 20 invoices coming
Right.
in all the time. So late, it was around 2016, 2017. I worked with our CMs to say, can you guys just give us one bill, one invoice?
Right.
You guys will
As a CM.
the CM, yeah.
Yeah.
So all the contracts are with the school district or with the owner, but you're our agent, therefore you're the one who receives the invoices on our behalf. You collect them. You pay the trade contractors once you get paid by us. So that way that simplifies. And I'll tell you, our finance departments, they were kissing the ground I walked on at that point.
Right. And like, no, you wouldn't have that. Like we did, again, a stip sum job where we had a demo contractor, it felt like this was a legit extra. It really wasn't, but they put a lien on the job.
Yeah.
And in that application, that wouldn't really happen in this case.
Oh, it would never. No.
It would never happen. Otherwise, of course, they would never work with the CM again because they've got that synergy. They know what to expect.
And that's one thing I can say with 100% confidence. In all the years that I've been a project manager, I've never had a lien put on a project. However, when I came to Richmond, there was a lien on an existing project that we needed to clear, and that was a stip sum. So again, I'm not poo-pooing stip sum.
Yeah.
I think for some people, it's a godsend because that way you don't, as a project manager, have to be as hands-on. You've got your prime consultant, basically overseeing the project on your behalf.
Yeah.
And you've got the builder. Whereas, the other way, you're in charge as the project manager.
Yeah. Again, but like we said earlier, having experience that makes a big role to it 100%. So in terms of the CA process, we know the RFIs are still going to come. We absolutely can't. And they probably are going to be a little bit more reduced because we've already talked about this in design, right? Not about what are you doing? What's the intention here? They always were part of it. There may be a formality, but I wouldn't say they would be reduced by half, but I would probably say a third of it, probably at least.
Oh, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, what ends up happening is I find that the number of RFIs is way lower. The number of change orders is way lower. And the RFIs and the COs or the CCN COs, it's tied more to unknown situations that you've encountered in the field. It's not so much a design deficiency from the beginning because it was caught by the construction manager during design.
Yeah.
So it's
mostly the CM is going to be reviewing those drawings as you're going through it. And when you're reviewing them as an owner, they'll take a set, they'll put their comments. Hey, we're not seeing details on this, and they're already pricing it. Yeah.
And with school districts, I think the biggest issue that I've seen, and I've like I said, I've worked with a number of school districts, both as an employee, but then, as a consultant as well. The record drawings that they've got from buildings that were built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s is awful. And I think the reason is they used to give away the drawings to architects to use for a new project and never got them back. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of going into a lot of these school renovation or seismic upgrade projects with poor record drawings. So you have to expect that when you dig that hole and you find out that the foundation is half as deep as what you thought,
right?
Yeah, that's going to be an RFI, and that's going to likely turn into a change order, and the structural engineer is going to want to, kill somebody.
Exactly. And when it comes to that change, so again, we know the basics and everything, SIs and stuff like that. Yes. It's like, so we're going to issue site instructions for them to the change. And rather than, we're not really technically issuing proposed changes or CCNs because, again, that's the CM process.
Yep.
And then they'll take it. Pricing is really more going to go to you. It's not going to go to the architect, other than maybe like, can you just kind of put your 2 cents to it? Does it match?
Yeah, typically the way I've done it is that, like you said, in most cases, you've got the request for information coming from the from the construction managers, from the site, it's from the trade contractor, it goes through their the construction manager's office. They put out the RFI. The response to that is normally a site instruction.
Yeah.
Or it's a response to the RFI followed by a site instruction. And the site instruction could involve costing, may not involve costing. If it involves costing, then it's up to the construction manager to put together the contemplated change notice, get the pricing from the trade contractors affected, send it back to the CA. And it goes to the CA first. It doesn't go to the project manager first. Well, at least not on my projects.
So it goes to the architect. They're going to look at it.
And the architect looks at it, the CA looks at it, they come back and say, yeah, that's reasonable. And then it's up to the construction manager to come to me as the owner and say, okay, we recommend that this be signed. I sign it. We move on.
And you keep moving.
And so because even though the architect or the prime consultant isn't the classic payment certifier, I want them to have some skin in the game anyway when it comes to that. And if that means that they review change orders, I mean, it's just, they got to review, they got to process submittals, shop drawings. I don't want them totally off the hook on this.
Exactly.
So,
do you find pricing is fair and reasonable even at that point? I guess that's where the architect's going to go like, come on, we just did this on another job and we're seeing this is getting a little regressive. And then I guess that's where they opens up the conversation. But again, it should be a much more relaxed conversation because you've got this relationship. You were working together.
Absolutely. No. And that's the way, and like I said, that's the way I like it. And just, when we're talking about construction fees, I just wanted to share something with you that my wife told me the other day is that she worries because I've taken on too much work since I'm supposed to be technically retired.
Yeah.
But she said that what makes her so happy is that I'm in a project, a construction meeting, like right now, Dixon Elementary in Richmond, seismic upgrade. I'm looking after it. And we're having these meetings and she can hear me talking. She can hear the others talking. And then all of a sudden she hears laughter.
Yeah.
Like I'll burst out laughing or they'll hear laughter the other side. She said, that is the greatest sound in the world. And that is something that, again, if you don't have that collegial relationship during design and you keep the team flowing, that you can poke fun at each other or you can have a good chuckle about something, and to me, that's what's really important. You take the job seriously, but you also know when not to take the job totally seriously or not take each other seriously. And that's been kind of the trademark of my projects. And that because you remember our project meetings that, sometimes got I wouldn't say crazy, but just we would have a good laugh with each other.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Is if someone was looking at doing CM, I'm throwing this out. It wasn't on the script, so you're all right out of there. But any kind of tips, like if you're about to venture down this path, if you had to give kind of like a few sentences of advice, what would you say? Well,
I think one of the ways to answer that is to say, how do you know if construction management as an agent is right for you, for your project? So I've got what I do is I got a bit of a checklist that I've put together. One is that you'll know it's appropriate when you've got the owner wants a strong desire to be involved with pre-qualifying sub-trades, controlling the local labor content. If you've got a tight schedule, which involves some sequential tendering of bid packages to fast track the job, then you know that this is a good approach to take. Again, that you trust the process, you trust the team, that you're as an owner, you're prepared to accept advice from other than your prime consultant and have it from the builder. If you have a complex project that is you know that it's going to be very difficult to adequately price a job because of unknown concealed conditions or complexities. And seismic upgrading is like the perfect example of the type of project that CM as agent works on, because you just have no idea what you're going to find when you open up the walls or floors or ceilings.
Yeah, exactly.
But the key to me is, um, if you're prepared to be more hands-on, that you're prepared to take it on the chin when things go sideways. And they I wouldn't say things always go sideways, but every project has its challenges.
Mhm.
But if you're prepared to, to take it on the chin if you have to, as long as you're prepared to problem solve, and you don't have to be a professional engineer to problem solve.
Yeah.
You just have to be a reasonable person who understands the business. Then I'd say then I say it is the right approach for you. And I, I think that it's worked for me for a number of years.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate that, in the project offices that I started at UBC, they were using CM as agent, and they were doing a lot of it in house,
Mhm.
using the same um, uh, theories, the same practices that we were using with private firms. And then when I started the project office at in Richmond, and the idea was that I was the director. I wasn't supposed to be hands on,
Mhm.
but you know me,
Yeah.
Matt. Of course, I'm going to take on some projects myself
Absolutely.
and do it. But I was able to teach uh, the project managers I hired
Yeah.
how to do this, and where they've moved on to now, in their careers, whether they're, they've moved on to other school districts, whatnot. Now they've got that, like say, that tool in the toolbox, that when they're talking to their bosses, they actually know that this is a really good approach for
Yeah.
that type of a job. So yeah, so I would say it's worked for me for a number of years. It's got me where I am today. And but I think that what it's done is it's built relationships, not just in the construction industry, not just with construction managers or trade contractors, but it's really solidified relationships with consultants, with engineering and
Mhm.
architectural consultants, because once they've had a chance to experience how we do these projects and the level of collaboration, I find that you rarely see uh, firms that have done this sort of work with me or with my team before. You'll never see them pass on an RFP in the
Yeah.
future. They want to work on these jobs, and they will
Exactly.
sharpen the pencil if they have to get that experience. And I can't think of very many consultants I've had who've just said, "Forget it. This is nuts. I don't want to do this." They've
Yeah.
all come back and said, "Yeah, we want more." So that to me is a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we're kind of wrapping up the
Yep.
hour here, but like you mentioned Seismic, I think we got to do this again for part 2.
Mhm.
I'll have you out to Harrison Hot Springs. We'll do that. We'll talk all about seismic upgrades, because that's another world that, and there's only so many people get experience because it's not required throughout all of North America, right?
Right.
It's very specific in that. So we'll have to do it again. Thank you so much for being on here.
Oh yeah.
Where can people find you? You mentioned a website.
Well,
Where
yeah.
do you even want people?
So,
No.
so yeah, no, time for a shameless plug. No, I'm just kidding. No, my company is FJ Geier Consulting,
Hmm.
and my website is fjgeierconsulting.ca. We're on the web. I'm on LinkedIn and that. I'm not. I don't. I'm not going out to to promote. I don't meet with school districts to promote my services. I want people to come to me. And
Yeah.
and I mean, the reason I got a website is because I was a webmaster. I've been a
Right.
webmaster for a long time as well. So I figured, well, I better put myself on the web. So yeah, no, I was just gonna say, if everyone wants to, even if they want to chat, or they need some advice on something, just look me up. And my door is always open unless it's shut, is what I always say to people.
Nice.
So yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Matt.
Well, thank you. It's been a blast. Like I said, we definitely got to do part 2.
Okay.
And yeah, I anyone listening to this, I think hands down, they totally know what construction management is going forward. There's no excuse of not knowing, understanding the pros, the cons. A lot of pros in this case, and
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it. So But yeah, that wraps up this episode. And of course, again, you guys have a new perspective about what CMs are in that respect. And I think too, with the channel, again, if you guys are enjoying this and listening to this, put a review in there, please. It really helps out the podcast immensely. And of course, last but not least, architects, keep designing, and contractors, keep making those blueprints reality. We'll see you on the next one.